Yo, what's up guys? It's Tuna. In today's video I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the setup that I've been running for my Spectres and basically what they do and just how insane they are. If you guys know that this league we can actually buy corpses directly from the vendors in the Wildwood, and those corpses themselves are very special because they are Spectres, and those Spectres can be raised and they give you various amounts of benefits, to your characters. Originally, you would sort of dismiss them as just being something for minion builds. However, today I'm going to show you that you can actually use these on pretty much every build, and the bonuses that they give are completely insane. It's basically like having Aurabots at your side, 2 extra auras for, the small investment of a 4-link and a flask. If you guys see on screen here, I have 2 Spectres. One of them is giving me the Zealotry aura, as well as increased critical strike multiplier. That's 30% extra crit multi. And the other one is giving me the Vitality aura and generating endurance charges for me on cooldown whenever he uses a shout. That is my setup, but I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about all of the other Spectres, what you can use for your build, and how you can keep them alive. So this is just going to be a setup for, non-minion builds, because of course minion builds are going to have their own setup. They don't have to worry so much about keeping them alive because they're more invested into minion life and that kind of stuff. This is just going to be a setup for non-minion builds and how to, to basically essentially make sure that you are keeping your minions alive. So as you can see on the left, we are using a 4-link setup that is a Race Spectre, minion life support, meat shield support, and elemental army. So what this setup is going to do is it's going to give your minions more life. It's going to make them be more like defensive around you. So meat shield essentially makes sure that the minions stay close to you when they're not actually attacking anything. And of course it gives them additional life. Elemental army gives them a maximum resistance, as well as, a ton of resistance, so that they're resistance cap basically just from this. And yeah, with this setup, your minions become pretty damn tanky, and they're going to be more playing passively, staying close to you. So they're not going to be running into things. And yeah, essentially, you're going to want to pair that with a Life Flask, and it's going to have the modifier, as you can see, grants increase, percentage of life recovery to minions, meaning that every time you use your flask, it's going to also heal your minions as well as yourself. Of course, this is going to take up a prefix slot, so it's going to mean that you're not going to have an instant flask or something like that. But it's definitely a worthy investment because it allows you to keep your minions alive, and it also, of course, as previously mentioned, gives you additional auras and so much damage or utility, right? So in combination with these two things, the one minion that I think you guys should all have, and it's very important, is gonna be the Perfect Warlord. The reason why you want the Perfect Warlord is because not only does it give you endurance charges to you, as well as your allies, meaning your other Spectre, but he casts the Vitality aura, and it's gonna be a level 20 Vitality aura. And what this means is that in addition to, of course, giving you regen, he also gives your allies regen, aka your second Spectre. Meaning that they're sort of keeping each other alive this way. So in situations where maybe you forget to use your flask, or you haven't used your flask in a bit, your minions are going to sort of stay alive on their own, because the Perfect Warlord is going to be bunched up with your second Spectre, meaning that, they're going to essentially heal off of that aura. So the Perfect Warlord, I think, is going to be vital to, every Spectre setup. And of course, it's going to give your character some utility as well as endurance charges. So what's there not to love? But now I'm going to talk a little bit about all of the other Spectres and, the second options that you have for basically, any build, right? Because any build is going to want different things. The Perfect Hydra, this one is going to be, the one that we saw in the trailer. And essentially what he's going to do is he's going to cast a Hatred aura as well as do a few attacks, right? So he does some visually cool things as well. But yeah, he casts a Hatred aura. I would generally try to stay away from this one because he is more expensive and he doesn't have like a secondary utility thing. As you'll see from the other Spectres, not only do they, cast an aura, but they also give you an additional bonus, right? So if you are a build that uses Hatred, it's probably best that you use Hatred yourself and you use a different Spectre, right? Instead of this one. So, but the option is there, of course, if you need it. Like, for example, this one, the Perfect Pain Artist grants Zealotry, right? And on top of granting Zealotry, he also has nearby allies have 30% to critical strike multiplier. So he gives you 2 bonuses, as well as, of course, the Zealotry aura, and he's very cheap. So, of course, rather than using a Hatred Spectre, you would probably rather cast Hatred yourself and then have the Zealotry Spectre instead. So that is an option there. This one here, the Perfect Blood Demon, casts Pride, and he has some other weird stuff, like absorbs corrupting blood, exploding it and dealing physical damage based on the damage of the corrupting blood. Honestly, I don't really think that is that cool, but the Pride one, you know, if you are a Fizz build, this one's going to be pretty useful for you. Now, the perfect Judgmental Spirit is going to be granting you the Discipline aura, so a ton of energy shield to you, as well as your Spectres, which is pretty nice. The perfect Primal Thunderbird, he casts Grace, so any evasion build, you know, you can have Grace here. That is nice, and also, of course, it's going to grant Grace to your minions too, so making them a little bit more defensive. This one is pretty, like, this one is insane, actually. The perfect Spirit of Fortune, he casts Wrath, but he also makes it so lightning damage of nearby allies is lucky. The way that lucky works in Path of Exile is it rolls your damage twice, and then it essentially chooses the highest roll. So with lightning damage that has such a big variance, what this means is that, you know, basically it's going to result in something like 20% more damage for your lightning damage, since overall, in general, it's going to even out to be always a higher roll rather than a lower roll, which is really nice. It's almost worth using it just for that roll, and not for the Wrath aura, right? Here, this one grants haste, but it also gives a chance to grant frenzy charges to nearby allies on hit. Yeah, he's going to be giving you a little bit of frenzy charge sustain. Pretty cool for builds that generally wouldn't have a way to generate them. Then we have the perfect Guardian Turtle. The perfect Guardian Turtle casts Determination, but it also gives you 5% physical damage reduction. With 5% phys damage reduction is pretty insane. It's going to be, you know, very good for any build that has a little bit of investment into armor, but also, of course, builds that don't have armor. It's just generally very good. This league is very physical damage heavy, as Path of Exile is in general, actually, so the more of this you have, the better, of course. We have the perfect Naval Officer, which grants precision, but it also notably grants 10 fortification, meaning it's basically granting you 10 flat damage reduction, 10%. That's pretty insane, considering the fact that, you know, it's cheap, and yeah, it also on top of that gives you precision. You know, having conditional accuracy is not great, but the 10 fortification is pretty damn insane, so it might be even worth just having that for the 10 fortification. Now we're getting into the purities. So we have the perfect Eldritch Eye, which grants purity of lightning. We have the perfect Frozen Cannibal, which grants purity of ice. And we have the perfect Fiery Cannibal, which grants purity of fire. Alright, so now we're getting into more niche, or sort of less aura focused Spectres. So things that will give you, you know, buffs that are not necessarily auras. The best one of which I think is this one, the perfect Forest Warrior, because it grants you Culling Strike, and it also grants you as well as your allies Onslaught. That's going to be really nice, you know, if you don't have a source of Culling Strike and you're doing a boss or something like that, he's going to be going at it, you know, hitting him. So he basically just calls the enemy at 10% HP. But it's also going to give you Onslaught, which is really nice, as most builds generally have Onslaught uptime while mapping, you know, through Onslaught on Kill or Flasks, but when they're getting to bosses, they don't have this Onslaught. So generally this is going to fill that gap, and also on top of that give you Culling Strike, which is really cool. We have the perfect Needle Horror, gives you 10% increased Impale effect, and you gotta note that this one says owner gains. So rather than it being sort of an aura that is, you know, you have to be in range of it, it just gives you owner gains, meaning you have always 100% uptime on Impale effect, which is insane because, you know, there'll be times where, for example, you're running away from your Spectres or something like that, and they are not in range. So most of the time, the Spectre buffs are going to be 100% active when you are engaged with a boss fight, you know, an arena or something enclosed. But when you're mapping, you're going to be like zooming past them, and they will teleport to you on cooldown, or as soon as like you go a certain distance away from them. But yeah, buffs like this are up 100% of the time, meaning, you know, you're just going to be gaining benefit forever as long as they're up and alive, which is pretty crazy. And then we have the perfect Ruined Skeleton, which gives the owner 5% more physical attack damage. So it's just 5% more damage for any physical attack damage build. And notably, we also have some corpses here, you know, Spectres that we can raise, like the perfect Hulking Miscreation, which gives 20% physical extra lightning. Yeah, in general, just going to give you some additional buffs to, you know, more damage or stuff like that. Then we have some pretty interesting ones for poison and chaos builds, which the perfect Half Remembered Goliath, going to give the owner 20% increased skill effect duration, so that's really nice for something like Toxic Rain. And the perfect Spider Matriarch, going to give the owner 20% increased effect of Withered, which, you know, is a pretty big multiplier for any poison build as well. Perfect Druidic Alchemist gives the owner 1 life flask charge every 3 seconds. So it's going to give you a little bit more flask sustain. And, you know, if you are a build that's more invested into gaining flask sustain, this is really nice, as it's going to give you the uptime 100% of the time, since it's owner gains rather than nearby allies. So yeah, you're going to be guaranteed to have an additional flask charge every 3 seconds. And it's something that you can, you know, essentially build around, as it's going to be scaled by flash charges gain and charge recovery and that kind of stuff. And lastly, the Perfect Blasphemer uses Smite. I put this last because I'm not 100% sure whether this Smite is actually giving you the Smite buff, but if it does, then it's pretty crazy because the Smite buff gives you a ton of flatlining damage. So essentially what it's going to do is it's just going to give you like an aura, and this aura is going to give you more lightning damage, which is, you know, really nice. It's something like that Aurabots use all the time traditionally. So yeah, it might be that this actually does not give you the Smite buff, as like, but I think it does, right? As it says Smite, and it doesn't have like a special sort of other tag or you know, like a trans tag like the other gem and stuff like that. But yeah, it's something that is worth testing for sure. But that is about it, and that sums up all of the Spectres that you can look into using on your builds. I hope this video has helped you guys, maybe has inspired you to try out the Spectre setup. I do think that you should first, you know, get the setup and try it out. Make sure that you are getting level 20 gems, ideally with also 20 quality, because of course they scale the amount of minion life as well as tankiness that your minions receive, as there might be cases where your Spectres actually die, and the annoying thing is that when they do, you have to actually go back and purchase them again off trade. So just to try out this setup, you know, I would really suggest you start it out with, you know, potentially getting cheaper ones rather than investing into the expensive ones first, trying it out. If you think that, you know, for your case scenario, or if you, for the maps you're running or stuff like that, that, you know, they don't die, then you can sort of invest more into the setup and, you know, build around it. So I hope this video has helped, guys, and I hope it's inspired you to use this setup in your build. And I think it's crazy. Like, I'm going to be using it on pretty much every build I do this league. It's something that is, it's not going to be here next league, let's be honest. It's completely broken. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a good day. And I hope, yeah, I hope your league start has been great. All right, peace out, everybody.